Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Cozypreneur. This week is a part 4 of a short series called Showing Up with Clarity, all about how to show up in the digital marketplace with more clarity and confidence. So if you missed last week's episode, I shared what my messaging framework actually looks like and what I use to help my clients with their messaging. And today I'm pulling back the curtain on how I use it in my own content planning. So if you want to build your own version of this, grab the free copy rubric below in the show notes. It walks you through all of the pieces of the copy framework and gives you some information on what that looks like in your business. And so you can really see what are areas that you're doing really great in and what are areas that you might want to improve on. And if you're inside Copy Classroom, there is the GPT Copy Companion where you can actually post your emails, blog posts, social media posts, and it will give you some feedback based on that rubric. So if you really like to nerd out on words, then Copy Classroom is your place to be. Welcome back to another episode of the Cozypreneur podcast. If this is your first time listening, Cozypreneur is all about helping you make money and work with the dreamiest of clients. So grab your beverage, get your cozy socks on, and let's dive in. All right, let's dive in. Before I started planning my content with a more zoomed out lens, I had about, hundreds of ideas in this Google Doc. And basically my content process was scroll through that Google Doc, see what felt good to me, and create a post. And so when I first started, I was doing that every single day. I was going into that doc, trying to find a post, creating a Canva for it, posting it on social media. And while I was showing up, I wasn't being super intentional about how I was showing up. And even when I started shifting to batching content weekly, I was still planning individually, right? Like I was still making one post at a time. I wasn't thinking about what's the overall picture? Where do I want my people to move? And so it was a lot of guessing. It was a lot of just let me throw spaghetti at the wall and see what works. And because there was no system behind it, everything felt like an individual thing. It felt like I was starting from scratch every single time. And that just took up so much brain space, right? If every time you have to start over from zero, it just felt so hard because I quickly felt like I was running out of ideas versus now I know what my ideal clients need to hear, right? I know what they're struggling with. I know why they're struggling with it. And I'm using all of that to create my messaging framework and then creating content based on that messaging framework. So what it actually looks like, let's talk about the podcast. I start my planning with my podcast, and part of it is because I have somebody else editing my podcast, and so I want to give them enough time to edit and schedule and do all of the things around my podcast, and because it's kind of a place where I can just word vomit and tell you guys all of my thoughts and feelings. It makes it a lot easier to repurpose ideas later. I start with my voice of customer. And so that means that I am talking to my clients. I am talking to people who want to join, and I'm learning more about them. I try to talk to at least one person every time I'm launching, 1 to 2 people. And it doesn't have to be super serious. I know that this client will be listening to this, but I had office hours yesterday in Copy Classroom, and it was just me and one of the members. And at the end, I said, if you have a few minutes, can I ask you some market research questions? It was my homework from meeting with a consultant last week. And, she was very gracious. Of course, love her so much. From that short conversation, it was maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I was able to get some insights on 1, why she joined in the first place. And 2, this is a person that has been in the membership for over a year. And so what is keeping her around? And so having that conversation, it just gave me a lot of ideas on what I can incorporate into my content, right? So the first step, I would say, is talking to your people, listening to your people, and seeing what are the themes, right? What are the common problems that they have? What are the common setbacks that they have? What are they trying that isn't working for them? And why is what you do different? So I got some insight from my people. The second thing I did was look up my keywords. And I know this is boring, but I feel like I probably just like made a SEO person really upset. I'm so sorry. But the second piece of it is looking for keywords. And this is something that when I first started the podcast, I wasn't doing like I was doing like light SEO, but I wasn't really like researching my keywords. But now that I'm shifting away from Instagram and the Meta apps, I am leaning more into SEO. I've also been seeing how even with my podcast being on my website and not putting a ton of effort into SEO, I think I had like 20 more clicks last month, right? So I'm starting to see like the needle moving in that way. And so now I'm like, let me heavily invest in this, right? Like, let me be really serious about SEO. If I'm not going to be on social media, I need to make sure people are finding me, and SEO is going to be the way to do that. It's also something I help my members with when they write their blogs in Copy Classroom, is finding the right keywords. What I did next was find the keywords. And so, as you can imagine, this whole series is about messaging, content marketing. So all of my keywords are around that, and I use them in my titles. I knew what my people are struggling with. I did some brainstorming around the messaging. I figured out what my SEO keywords were, and then I used all of that information that I've collected so far, and I planned out the next 5 episodes of my podcast. And so that's the series that you are listening to now. I know we're being so meta, but right, you have your problem. So talking about why you don't know what to say when you show up. And I'm not necessarily solving the problem, but I am offering value, right? Like, I'm talking about like, hey, you're struggling with this and this is going to help you. Then you have the assessment, and the assessment is the episode where I talk about just being consistent isn't enough, right? The myth of just being consistent. That's something that's holding people back because they're confused. They're showing up every single day and they're doing the things, but they're not getting the results that they want, even though they're being consistent. So it was really that episode. I know we're being so meta here, but that episode was like debunking the myth. Then we had my solution episode, which was, hey, here's my framework and here's how you can actually apply it. And now we have this episode, which is all about behind the scenes. This is your brand part of the framework, how I handle it. And so what I did was I listed out all of the titles. I brainstormed for the podcast and I started from there. And so when I look at my, monthly workflow for content planning, this is how it starts. It starts with the podcast. I record all of the podcast episodes. The next thing I do is do the promotion for the podcast. So the emails that go out about the podcast, the social media that goes out about the podcast. From there, I shift. My podcast is done every single month. I try to batch all the episodes. Goals are 1 day. Sometimes it takes me like 5 days. It just like depends on what's going on in the business and how busy I am. And this month has been particularly busy. So I have struggled to batch record these, but they're happening slowly but surely. So I batch the podcast. I have my message from the beginning. I have those SEO keywords. Then I'm going to take that message and I'm going to start writing some emails about it. And I'm going to take every podcast episode and I'm going to think about, hey, what is a good thing that I could pull out from this episode and turn it into an email? And maybe every episode is like a few emails. Like, it doesn't have to be like one for one. Think about like, how can you add a different lens to it? How can you add a different perspective? And just because I'm repurposing my podcast content and turning it into emails doesn't mean that it has to have a call to action to the podcast. Like, if you get my emails, Fridays, I always send the new podcast episode. But during the week, you're getting emails that are still centered around these same themes, right? Like, it's all one cohesive story. So yeah, now like you can pay attention to my emails and you can get meta as you read them. And if you're not on the list, you can sign up on the website. Basically, I create a plan for my emails. I use the same kind of structure: problem, assessment, solution, product, and brand. I just do the same thing I did with my podcast, and I do the same thing with my emails. So one thing that I get asked a lot is, with this PASP framework, right? Do you want one email to go over the whole framework? And my short answer is no. And the reason why is because when you're thinking about this framework, the whole purpose behind this framework is you're moving people through the customer journey. So, right, if people are starting at problem aware and they know about their problems, but they don't know how to fix them, then they move on to solution aware. They are starting to gather information about the different types of solutions. And then finally, it comes to consideration and decision, where they're like, hey, okay, I know all of these things, and now I need to make a decision about which offer is going to be the right offer for me. And so people are going through this phase as you are showing up. And so you don't want to be like, hey, here is your problem and why it matters and what you want, and here's how I can help you fix it, like all in one email, because that's really overwhelming and it doesn't give people like the time to like process and think. So if you instead are like, hey, here's one or two emails about the problem, and let them sit with that for a little while, and not in like a, hey, I'm trying to make you feel bad, but like, hey, recognize that you have a problem and that I'm validating your emotions and your experience, right? Because it really is about like building that trust with your people. And I like to give this example of, if you had a friend come to you who is really struggling with something and they're really upset, you're not going to jump right into solution mode. You're going to stop and listen. You're going to listen to what are their concerns, and it's your friend. So like, even if they're like a little bit wacky, you're still being supportive. And so you're listening to them, and then you're kind of like, okay, here's what I'm hearing. And maybe you're giving them a little of assessment. And then when they are ready, they might come to you for advice. And that's when you're giving the solution, right? So think about it like that. If your people are like one of your close friends, how can you like take the time to validate their experiences and take the time to really be like, hey, I see you and I see what you're going through, and this is how I can help. But it doesn't have to be all in one email or one social media post or one podcast, right? You really want to like give them time to marinate and give them space. Like, you don't want to be like, hey, this is your problem and now buy from me. Like, right? Like, it's a relationship. Like, relationships take time to build, and it's not very often that you're going to get somebody who's like, okay, I'm ready to buy right away. Like, it happens, but it's not as frequent as the Instagram people will lead you to believe. So what I've found for my clients is really like taking that structure, the PASP structure, and writing one email for it, right? And that's 5 emails. That's your emails for the month. And then taking like a slightly different theme, right? So for me, like, this whole series is all about messaging. And so for this whole month, we're talking about messaging. We're talking about content frameworks. We're talking about content marketing for the whole month, right? And it's not like you're getting the same email every single day or the same podcast episode. There's different perspectives in each podcast episode. There's a different lens in each email. And so somebody who is paying attention, somebody who's listening to all the podcast episodes, somebody who's reading all the emails, they're going to get a lot of depth. And that depth of understanding is going to build trust with you. And that's what's going to help you get more clients in the long run. And it's going to help you build a lot of brand loyalty, because people will be very clear on how you help. I think probably one of the things that hurts people a lot, I could do like a whole episode on this, but when you are like constantly switching your offers or constantly switching your message, it doesn't give people enough time to build that brand awareness and build trust with you. So like, if you are constantly being like, hey, this is how I help you, and then next month you're like, hey, this is something else that I help you with, and then next month you're like, hey, this is something completely different that I help you with, it's going to get confusing for your people. And I say this because there are times I have always sold copywriting. Like, that has been my thing since the beginning of my business. And there are times where I talk to somebody and they sign on as clients a year later, right? So imagine if I am like, hey, actually I'm switching my thing. And then somebody comes back and it's like, hey, I have a whole totally different brand with totally different messaging. It's going to be jarring to them and it's going to hurt your trust factor. And so really thinking about like, how can you build this like core message where like, for example, I'm talking about messaging this month. And then maybe the next time I'm doing a series on AI, and maybe the next time I'm doing a series on websites, and everything is still related to what I do. And you have a lot of the same themes embedded, right? So I talk a lot about like how to not be a shitty person when you're marketing, right? Like how to do consent-based marketing, how to build an email list. All of those things are still threaded through all of my content. It's just that we're approaching it with a different theme every single time. But no matter what, I'm still taking people through this framework over and over and over because it works and because it really helps guide people, not necessarily to buy from you because we don't want to pressure people, but it helps them guide them to make the best decision for them. Is this offer right for you? And ultimately, that's what the goal of marketing is. It's not to like get as many people as possible. It's about getting the right people in front of you and the right people to convert, because then you build this really great client experience. And that's when you have referrals and all of that stuff. So that is basically how I plan my content. I start with my podcast. I move to my emails. I'm currently taking a social media break. And then I also have the person who manages my podcast also does my blog, which helps me with SEO. So if you wanted a behind the scenes on how I find clients, that is what it is, plus referrals and networking, of course. And that's another thread that goes through my marketing is you have to talk to people. Like, people who talk to people make more money. Like, having conversations with people, I understand. I don't like talking to people. I mean, I do, but like, I also just like am super introverted. I would rather be on my couch, like playing video games than being on a call with somebody. Even though like I actually really enjoy talking to people, it really tires me out. But I will say talking to people has made the biggest impact in my business of anything else. Having those conversations matter. And so thinking about, yes, your marketing is important, your messaging is important, but you can take this messaging and talk to people in person. Hey, here's how I help people. Talk to people at networking events, right? Building those one-on-one connections in person, in coffee chats, that's going to be huge for your business. So my point in that is to say that your messaging framework can take you deeper than just emails and your website and whatever it is that you're writing. It can also help you feel more confident in the way that you talk to people in real life, which can really help you move the needle on your business. So if you are like, okay, Stacy, how do I implement this in my business? I need a structure like this. You can download the copy rubric below to help get you started. It breaks down the framework and gives you some criteria for success. And it really basically helps you see what you're doing well, what needs a little more love in terms of your messaging, and it walks you through the pillars and how to edit your copy. And then if you want some more help with implementing that in your business, check out Copy Classroom. It's going to be exactly where you can build your brand foundations and then also write high converting copy with the eye of a copywriter, aka me. So that is that. Thank you so much for listening. We've got one more episode in this mini series and I cannot wait until next time. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to rate and leave a review on your preferred listening platform. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe for weekly episodes about how to make money and work with the dreamiest of clients without having to get dressed in the morning. Make sure to check out the show notes down below, and I'll see you in the next episode.